right. Let us begin. We're going to talk about, I believe, 3 of the fights on this main card. Before we do any fights or fighters that you guys want to spotlight for the listeners.
I'll leave the first one on the card for Mark because that's his boy. So we'll leave that one there. I will say Duho Choi is on this card. I don't know if we.
Oh, I thought we said we were going to do that fight. Yeah, we're doing
I didn't see him on the
fights.
list, so we'll leave Duho Choi for a breakdown.
Yeah, that's my fault. I left him off the list. I didn't mean to do that because you did ask to do Duho Choi. Yeah, we're doing 4 fights.
But Jun Park is on this card as well against Dennis Tululian. Tululian?
Yep,
You got it.
I think that was right. That's a banger, guys. That's going to be a banger. It's probably not going to be the most technical fight, but it will be a scrap. I do enjoy Jun Park. He's a heavy-handed man. And Dennis Tululian has shown some promise. So it'll be an interesting scrap, I think. So that's definitely one to look out for.
agree. Yeah, I will spotlight Tatsuro Taira, who is opening this card, which is a little bit of a wild spot to me, considering the level of prospect that he is. They have a different prospect on the main card, which is Yasaku Kinoshita, who is a Japanese prospect who's, I guess, got a little bit of hype behind him. They put him on the main card, I guess, to try to give him some shine on this card that has Asian flair, but you would have thought they would have gave that spot to Tatsuro Taira, considering we've already seen how good he is in the UFC. So I don't know why they put him so early in the card, but they did. He's fighting a debuting fighter in Jesus Aguilar. But definitely tune in and see Taira most likely do work there. And then, yeah, as I said, you got 4 weight classes that are having the finals of tournaments for Road to the UFC. Flyweight, bantamweight, featherweight, lightweight. So they're all on this card. And then, yeah, let's get into these 4 bigger fights.
Okay, let us start in the featherweight division. Duho Choi versus Kyle Nelson. Duho Choi, maybe most known for the absolute war that he had with Cub Swanson back in 2016. He is 14-4 as a pro. He's a 31-year-old out of South Korea, of course. Of his 14 wins, 12 have come by finish. And he himself has never been subbed. His opponent, Kyle Nelson, the 31-year-old out of Ontario, Canada, the Monster is his nickname. He's 13-5 as a pro, 9 finishes, and most recently coming off back-to-back losses at the hands of Billy Q and Jai Herbert. Omar, let me start with you. Give us your take and your pick of Duho Choi versus Kyle Nelson.
I like Duho Choi, man. I like his style. I love the way he fights. What I'm hoping here, his last 2 fights have been competitive until they weren't. And he's taken a good amount of damage just in his last few fights. Up until that point, he was pretty flawless, man. Pretty disgusting. His striking and his accuracy were really on point. And then he started getting into these crazy-ass brawls. And as much as we enjoyed them, I think they took their toll on him. What I am hoping is that his last fight was December of 2019. I'm hoping there's been some recovery there. I'm hoping he's taken some time off. And I'm hoping that we see the best version of Duho Choi because the man was a real prospect. I thought he had real potential to go far, and he didn't reach that potential, once we got into that little bit of a losing streak. But like we've seen when we talked about our top 10 women of all time, a lot of them have run into those little bits of losing streaks. Doesn't mean they can't become great. Doesn't mean they can't become champion. I still think Duho Choi has that ability. So I'm hoping to see Duho Choi really style out here against Kyle Nelson because I think he can. I think this is the perfect type of matchup for him to really put something together. I don't think we're going to see Kyle Nelson going for double legs on every single minute of the fight. I think he is going to come in there. He is going to scrap with him. And I think Duho Choi walks away with the victory. I'm going to go KO round 2.
Mark?
All right, so Choi's the favorite. He's minus 185. Kyle Nelson is plus 150. Choi is finally back after fulfilling his duty in the Korean military. Things did not end well for him before he left. He went 0-3 on his way out. But they were pretty much all wars. He still kind of showed some signs. He's still only 31 years old, so he should still be in his prime. As Omar said, maybe the layoff helped in some ways. He had some violent fights He's got to be pumped to be back, you would think. And frankly, I think he's been given a matchup to make sure he shines, and I think he will. I think that, as Omar alluded to, Nelson will be willing to strike with him. And I think Choi puts a big pace on, and he has big power. And I'll say he ends things by knockout in one of the first 2 rounds. Give me round 1.
Dude, Duho Choi, I have always loved watching him fight, man. He is a Korean firecracker at that weight class. I'm rooting for him. I'm going to pick with my heart here. I'm going to want him to get right back in the win column and have a y'all must have forgot kind of fight. I'm going to say Duho Choi is going to come back, and I think he's going to finish Kyle Nelson in the second round with strikes. Let's go.
Let's go.
Okay. We have in the heavyweight division, Marcin Tybura versus Blagoy Ivanov. So Tybura, the 37-year-old out of Poland. Heavyweights are always old.
Always.
Always.
Which won't change when we get to the other card we're going to do.
Yes, it's true. Yes, even more so. Tybura, 23-7 as a pro, 9 knockouts, 6 subs added to that, coming off of a win against Alexander Romanov by a majority decision back in August. Blagoy Ivanov, the 36-year-old out of Bulgaria, 19-4, 1 no contest, 6 knockouts, 6 subs, well-rounded record. Also coming off of a win against Marcos Rogerio de Lima back last May. Mark, give us your take and your pick.
All right, so pretty tight odds, maybe as expected. Tybura is minus 135. Ivanov is plus 115. Tybura has some big advantages in his corner here in terms of the size. He's 4 inches taller, and he has a 5-inch reach advantage. And I think those can play a big factor for him. Blagoy is so tough and kind of works a game that really makes it hard for guys to get their own stuff off. But with Tybura being the quicker guy here and being able to combine that size and that reach, plus the pace that Tybura can keep, I think it's going to be enough to be able to be winning this fight on points, despite the way that Blagoy is kind of able to nullify dudes. So Ivanov's chin is good, so I don't think he goes away, but I think Tybura can do enough to at least take 2 of these rounds. So give me Marcin Tybura UD.
Omar.
I have, and I say this wholeheartedly knowing this man has a winning record, that he won his last fight, but I have like 0 confidence in Blagoy Ivanov. Like 0. And with that, I believe that Tybura has a lot more potential, and I think is just as well-rounded, if not even more well-rounded than Ivanov is. The other thing is, Ivanov hasn't been finished since 2014, where he got choked out by Alexander Volkov. I think 2023 is going to be a fucked up year for Ivanov because I think he gets ground and pounded into the fucking skull of the earth. Round 2, TKO, Marcin Tybura. Let's go.
Okay. Omar thinks Tybura is going to finish Ivanov for the first time in his career by strikes. I mean,
correct.
look, Blagoy's a tank, man. And but I'm going to echo the same sentiment. I've never been super high in his skill set. I like Tybura better as a heavyweight. I'm going to similar to Mark's pick, I'm going to say Tybura by UD because he's going to be the bigger fighter, the better fighter. I think he's going to shine in this fight against Ivanov. I think Ivanov is going to be a punching bag for Mr. Tybura.
I wish I knew who the referee was because the way I see this happening is it's going to be a lot of volume on the ground that Ivanov is not going to have an answer for, and the referee is going to have to call it. Otherwise, we're just going to watch somebody just continuously get pummeled. So it depends on the referee how early this gets called, or if it doesn't get called at all.
Ivanov's always so good at like kind of holding you on the fence and like nullifying you and throwing like short shots, but I just don't think that's going to work against Tybura. I think he's like too big, and like I said, he's faster. I don't know. I think it's a tough matchup for Ivanov.
And I think Ivanov, like we were talking about, because he's well rounded, he's able to kind of put the fight where he wants. Tybura can do the same thing.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't like where he's at when it comes to an exchange with Ivanov, he's just going to change levels and take him down. Yeah. And I fully believe Tybura's ground game is better than Ivanov's is, and I think his top game specifically is a fucking problem. Yeah. And if he gets on top of him, I don't think Ivanov's getting up. I just don't.
Yeah. I'm not a huge Tybura guy, but I like him a lot in this fight.
Same.
Okay, co-main event for this UFC Fight Night. In the light heavyweight division, Da-Un Jung taking on Devin Clark. So Da-Un Jung, the 29-year-old out of South Korea, 15-3 as a pro, 1 draw added to that. 11 knockouts on his record, coming off a knockout loss. His first ever knockout loss at the hands of Dustin Jacoby. He will be standing across Devin Brown Bear Clark, the 32-year-old out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. 13-7 as a pro with 4 knockouts, coming off of a loss as well, a TKO at the hands of Azamat Murzakanov. I'm butchering that, excuse me. Omar, give us your take and your pick of Da-Un Jung versus Devin Clark.
So Da-Un Jung's nickname is Seda, and it means to be strong in Korean. So very to the point, because that man's hands are something else. I, like Ivanov, have zero confidence in Devin Clark. I don't see any path of victory here for him personally. I guess there is a potential to take him down and work from the ground. I see Da-Un Jung stuffing every single takedown attempt that there might be thrown by Devin Clark. And I see Devin Clark getting knocked out again. I think that last fight might have been that switch. And Da-Un Jung is like the wrong person to follow up a KO loss with, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to go Da-Un Jung by knockout, and I don't think Devin Clark comes back to the UFC after this next fight.
Ooh. Mark?
I could see that being accurate. Jung's a pretty significant favorite. He's minus 245. Devin Clark is plus 200. Another one here with a size difference. Jung is 4 inches taller. He has a 3.5-inch reach advantage. Devin Clark is just one of these guys who constantly has a performance that makes you say, like, hey, maybe Devin Clark is making some strides. And then you see him again, and you're like, oh, no, he's not. So, I don't know. He's tough to evaluate, but I think Jung is just the much more dangerous and varied striker. And I'm not sure that Clark can have enough success with the wrestling to turn the tide in this matchup. Like, Jung is a well-rounded fighter. I think there's enough wrestling in his bag to make sure that a good chunk of this fight takes place on the feet. And like Omar said, the man carries power, and Clark gets hit clean a lot. So I think this is going to go south for Clark eventually as the fight goes on. It could even be earlier. I'll say it's later. I'll go Jung with a round 3 TKO.
We are unanimous in this one. Completely agree. I think Devin Clark at this weight class, I wonder what he could do if he cut to middleweight. I mean, he's only 6 feet tall. Who was it that broke his like maxilla bone or like broke his teeth? Remember that?
Was
that Anthony Smith or
no?
Was it Rakic?
Anthony Smith choked him out.
Was it Kute Laba?
It was ugly. That was ugly.
Oh, I do kind of remember that.
I
don't remember who it was, but I do remember that.
I can't.
Well, he lost that fight, so
yeah, he lost that one. Yeah, I'm going to go Da-Un Jung knockout, round 1.
Yeah, it was Kute Lava. Yeah,
it was Kute Lava. All right, main event time. In the heavyweight division, Derrick the Black Beast Lewis taking on Serghei the Polar Bear Spivac. Derrick Lewis, really needing no introduction. He is the UFC knockout king. The 37-year-old out of Houston, Texas. His record stands at 26-10 and 1 no contest. Out of his 26 victories, 21 have come by way of knockout. He is, however, coming off back-to-back losses at the hands of Tai Tuivasa and Serghei Pavlovich. So, Derrick Lewis looking to get back in the win column against the surging Serghei Spivac, the 29-year-old out of Moldova. His record stands at 15-3 right now. 7 knockouts and 6 submissions to his record, probably most known for his relatively strong grappling skills among the heavyweight ranks. He's coming off back-to-back wins over Greg Hardy and Augusto Sakai. Mark, give us your assessment and ultimately your pick of Lewis versus Spivac.
I will do that, but something also just hit me that I have never realized before.
That I'm very handsome?
Doesn't Derek... That what?
That I'm very handsome.
No, I always realize that. Doesn't Derrick Lewis's chest tattoo say Knockout King?
Oh, does it?
I'm pretty friggin' sure. And he's always had that tattoo.
I think you're
To
right.
actually become the UFC Knockout King
my God.
is absurd.
I never noticed his tattoos, to be honest.
Did anyone Google it?
I'm looking at it right now. You're absolutely right, but I never
It
noticed
does,
it
right?
just now.
Yeah. It just hit me. I'm like, wait.
It says
Wow.
Knockout King. Damn.
Like, what are the fucking chances? That's insane. Fucking manifested it. Huh. All right, to the fight. The Knockout King is an almost 2-1 underdog. He is plus 190. Serghei Spivac, minus 230. Thought Lewis may be a dog. Didn't think he'd be that much of one. These two are both big boys, same exact size, basically. Lewis has a 1-inch reach advantage, but that's pretty negligible. Of course, he's on a slide recently. He's been losing. It looks like maybe his time toward the top of the division is passing him by, but I will say this. Serghei Spivac is not the same type of fighter that has been beating Derrick Lewis. Like, Lewis lost, well, first he lost to Cyril Gahn, who's from the future, then to two guys who aren't afraid of his power and who possess the power on their own end to put him out, which, of course, being Tuivasa and Pavlovich. Serghei Spivac ain't that kind of fighter. He has power, but he wants to take you down and get on top of you. And Derrick Lewis historically has done very well against grapplers. Like, he defends takedowns pretty well. He's unreal at powering his way back to his feet. And Spivac is a big boy, so maybe he can hold him there. But it's no easy task. And on the feet, Spivac gets hit. Like, he's been put out before. And if Derrick Lewis lands, this whole fight is going to change. And not to mention, as good as Spivac has looked, the guys he's beaten in this run of 5 out of 6 wins that he's on are Carlos Felipe, Jared Vendera, Alexei Oleinik, Greg Hardy, and Augusto Sakai, who's a shell of the Augusto Sakai of like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So not one of those dudes is on the level of a Derrick Lewis. Even a Derrick Lewis who may be on the back end here. So I'm going to go with Derrick Lewis again. Like, he's a decent underdog here. Maybe I'm not realizing that he doesn't have it anymore, and I will after this. But I don't know. I'm not seeing it. I think this matchup favors Derrick Lewis. I think that he looks really good physically. I think he's saying the right things, and I'm going to choose to believe he can get this done. I will say Derrick Lewis, round 3 knockout.
Boom. Omar, it's your turn.
Listen, I sent you guys a picture of this new Derrick Lewis. This motherfucker looks like he's lost like 25, 30 pounds. He looks crazy. I've been on the Derrick Lewis train. I have no intention of getting off the Derrick Lewis train, especially not for goddamn Serghei Spivac. I can tell you that. I do think Serghei has more tools than Derrick Lewis, but I do think that Derrick Lewis has enough tools in his toolkit to keep himself up off the ground and to land something that will cause Serghei Spivac to not be awake anymore. I'm actually really excited for this fight because if we do see a lighter, faster Derrick Lewis, because if Derrick Lewis can get the speed advantage here and continue to keep his power, it's a bad man. That might be a new Derrick Lewis that we might see going on here. But that's a bad combination. So I hope he can put it together. I hope he's really been taking the time to train. It looks like he has. So I'm hoping for the best. As far as the pick, I'm going to go with Derrick Lewis, KO, round 3. No, round 5 in true Derrick Lewis form.
Wow.
I like that. So you're saying round 5 knockout. Mark, what'd you say?
3.
Round 3. Folks, how should I say this? This is going to be a y'all must have forgot night for Derrick Lewis. Serghei Spivac, he's a big boy, but I completely echo Mark's sentiments that Derrick Lewis has a good track record against strong grapplers, and I think this is going to be no different. I think he's going to defend the takedown well. He's going to be slippier than Spivac thinks, and Derrick Lewis is the kind of guy, he only needs to ding you once, and I think he's going to find Spivac's chin at some point. I'm going to split the difference. I'm going to say Derrick Lewis is going to weather some grappling storms surprisingly well. He might look gassed at some points, but in round number 4, I think he's going to find Spivac's chin and finish him by TKO.
All of us on the dog. Love it.
Let's go.
Love it. Let's hope we're right.